1 year ago, we both quit our 9-to-5 jobs. I left my job as an architectural visualizer in London.
And I left mine as a corporate lawyer in Hong Kong.
Since then, we've lived in 6 cities across the world, traveled more than we ever did before, and tested out many different versions of what life could be like, all while trying to figure out where we might want to build a long-term home.
This probably sounds like an expensive way to live, with more flights, more short-term rentals, more moving around, and no active income. But when we finally sat down and looked at the numbers, our combined yearly expenses after quitting were actually lower than what I used to spend by myself living in Hong Kong.
It turns out that a large part of our old expenses weren't really the cost of living. It was actually the cost of working. The rent premium, the commute, the convenience spending, the stress recovery, and the money we spent to keep ourselves functioning in a job that was draining us.
Today, we want to share 8 ways that quitting our full-time jobs actually made our life cheaper, and why, in 2026, a life with more freedom and flexibility is far more affordable than many people think.
When I worked as a 3D visualizer in London, a junior artist around me would typically earn around £28,000 a year. And here is the supposed path. Work hard, sacrifice evenings and weekends, grind for 6 to 9 years, and if you're lucky, you might eventually become a senior lead artist, earning around £52,000 a year. That sounds like progress, but after tax, how much of that money do you actually take home? After rent, food, bills, and how much can you really save?
The main point is, a job doesn't just pay you, it also creates expenses, the biggest one being rent. If your job requires you to be in an office, you will often pay a huge premium to live near your work for a convenient commute. But when you don't need to commute every day, by living a bit further away from business districts, you can get your rent instantly cut by 30%.
Then there's the commute itself. In New York, a regular subway commuter would spend around $1,820 a year for an unlimited subway card. In London, if you live around 45 minutes away by tube from your work, you will spend over $4,000 a year on the same card, just to get to and fro work. And if you drive, the cost can be much higher. But that doesn't even count the time that you spend commuting each day. If you commute 1 hour each day, 5 days a week, that is around 500 hours a year, completely unpaid, sitting in a sweaty subway cart.
And then there is food. When you are working full-time in a city, especially in a CBD area, convenience becomes very seductive. Coffee before work, lunch near the office, delivery and takeout after a long day, work-related food spending can easily become thousands of dollars.
Then there's the work clothing. Office clothes, formal shoes, suits, shirts, dresses, or whatever presentable clothing you wouldn't otherwise choose to wear, that could be another $500 per year.
A job has an operating cost. If you're still working right now and want to reduce your spending before making any big life change, check out this video about how I saved 80% of my income while living in Hong Kong, not by making life miserable, but by making frugality feel fun and empowering.
And when you calculate whether you can afford to work less, take a break, or leave a job, you can't just compare your salary against zero. You have to subtract the cost of keeping that salary possible. Oftentimes the job pays less than it looks, and freedom costs less than you might imagine. The second thing that made our life cheaper was Geo-Arbitrage. The idea that you can earn, save, or build skills in one place, then spend your life in another, where your money has much more power. Geo-Arbitrage is one of the most underrated wealth strategies for our generation.
The cost of life is geographically priced. Here in Dali, where we're currently staying, we pay about $800 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment with a beautiful lake view while enjoying eternal spring and avoiding the summer heat. While before leaving Hong Kong, I was spending around $2,300 a month for an apartment half the size. That amount could support a very comfortable life for both of us in many parts of the world.
When we ate Thai food in London, we could easily spend £50 on a pad Thai, 2 drinks and service fees. In Chiang Mai, Thailand, we could have a full delicious meal for 2 for around £10 or less. Even identical products are priced differently depending on where you are. For example, we bought Legend of Zelda and Tomodachi Life in Japan for 30% cheaper than if we were to buy it in the US or the UK.
But the real power of geo-arbitrage is not just spending less, it's matching your location to what you actually value. Everyone's spending pattern is different. If private education matters to you, Spain or Portugal may offer international schools at a fraction of what you'd pay in New York, London or Hong Kong. If you want affordable private healthcare, Thailand is attractive because it has an established medical tourism industry. If you want Spanish immersion, cultural richness and proximity to the US, Mexico may offer a compelling balance. If your main priority is minimizing day-to-day costs while still having having a large digital nomad community, Vietnam is one of the most cost-effective options.
And this connects to the math we explained in our previous video. Based on my personal experience, you can actually save more money teaching English online in Portugal than working as a 3D visualizer in London. On paper, the London job might look more prestigious, more career-driven, but after taxes and survival costs, the lower status job in the cheaper city can leave you with more savings, more time, and less stress.
Once you lower your basic costs through geo-arbitrage, many of the things that make life feel rich have become radically more accessible. Learning, art, entertainment, creativity, self-expression, a lot of these things no longer require high income in the way they once did.
In the past, becoming highly educated often meant paying enormous tuition to attend a university. Now you can watch lectures from elite universities online for free. You can learn almost anything else at a very low cost. Publishing your ideas once required convincing a newspaper, magazine, or book publisher to give you space, and now anyone can write online, make videos, and build an audience from a laptop. Building a product also used to require a team with different skills, but now with AI tools and vibe coding, one person alone can get surprisingly far with just an idea.
And in the physical world, we also have access to more free public resources than we often notice. Parks, libraries, museums, community centers, festivals. When we were in Seville, Spain, the civic centers offered so many low-cost, well-designed activities. Local residents could take classes, join events, learn skills, and participate in community life without needing much money. It reminded us that civilization in developed areas has really built many parts of a good life. But when we were working full-time, we just didn't have the time, energy, or mental bandwidth to take advantage of them.
Wealth can mean having the time to use what the world has already made available. In that sense, quitting work can make us richer twice. First, by lowering the amount of money we need, and second, by giving us the freedom to actually enjoy what exists around us. The fourth way our life actually became cheaper is that we started insourcing parts of our life back. Outsourcing can be wonderful. It's one of the great conveniences of modern society. Division of labor allows us to focus on what we're really good at and pay others to handle things that we're not good at or just do not enjoy doing.
But for many people, outsourcing is no longer a choice. It becomes a survival strategy. When you work 50 or 60 hours a week, you become time poor. And when you're time poor, almost every part of daily life comes with a convenience markup. You buy pre-chopped vegetables because you're too tired to prep food. You order Uber Eats because you don't have the energy to cook. You pay for the same-day delivery because even going to the shop feels impossible.
At some point, the problem is not that you're outsourcing the things you hate. The problem is that you are forced to outsource parts of your life you might actually want to live. Parenting is one of the clearest examples. In the US, people pay more than $13,000 a year on childcare on average, not because parents don't want to be with their children, but because the modern work system makes it almost impossible to be a full-time employee and a present parent. In places like Hong Kong and Singapore, where live-in domestic helpers are common, families can end up outsourcing the majority of the day-to-day parenting.
When you become time rich, you can start taking back the parts of life that matter to you. You can cook again, you can walk your own dog, you can clean your own house, you can take your time to run errands. For me, now, even cleaning and washing dishes can actually be calming and therapeutic when there is nothing to rush about.
This also connects to how we think about having children. In our previous video, we talked about how we're preparing for a child whilst neither of us currently has plans to work a traditional job. We don't think children are automatically expensive. Children and the traditional 9-to-5 system are just deeply incompatible. If both parents must sell most of their weekday hours to employers, then the care has to be bought back from the market. But if parents have more time, you need less paid childcare, and you can give your time and attention as care.
The fifth saving is what we call the recovery tax, the money you spend trying to recover from the exhaustion of work. The retail therapy after a brutal week, the expensive holiday because you need to feel alive again, or even the alcohol, weed, sleeping pills, or therapy sessions that help make you feel better just to keep grinding.
And even now, we are still paying some of the old recovery tax. Both of our previous jobs required us to sit at desks for days and nights, and we are still suffering from serious neck and shoulder injuries and need physiotherapy just to manage the pain. But now that we are finally resting, the pain is slowly beginning to ease.
When I worked as a corporate lawyer, another thing I noticed was the moment a holiday began, many people would rush straight to the airport. Their itineraries were packed from morning to night, as if every free hour had to be squeezed for maximum value. And they would come back to office, often looking almost more exhausted than before they left. I often wondered if these trips were less about joy and more about escape. A new environment gives us temporary distance from the routines, pressures, and unhappiness waiting at home, and for a few days you can become lighter, freer, and harder to reach. But when the holiday becomes a desperate attempt to recover from ordinary life, something is wrong with that ordinary life.
Money can buy time, but time can also save money. When you work a traditional 9-to-5 job, you are pushed into consuming almost everything at the most expensive time. You fly on weekends and public holidays, you travel during school breaks, you eat out on Friday nights, you go to the gym at 6 p.m. when everyone else is there. Once we controlled our own time, we started noticing how many small costs came from competing with everyone else for the same limited windows.
Restaurants are half the price at lunch, amusement parks have weekday discounts, lines at banks, clinics, and government offices are much shorter when most people are at work. When I was working 12-hour days, I had to squeeze exercise into my lunch or dinner break and pay $25 for a yoga session with 30 other people in the same room. Now I can work out whenever I feel like without even paying for a gym. I just roll out my yoga mat at home and enjoy an HIIT session on YouTube completely free.
And if you're abroad, you can keep in touch with your friends and family more easily, as you can work around their schedule and the time difference. Because of this, you feel less of a need to travel back so often just to sustain your close support network.
The flexibility applies especially to travel. When your trips have to fit in a few limited holidays, travel becomes expensive and crowded. With a flexible schedule, we can choose the off-season instead. For example, Tokyo is usually the most expensive during cherry blossom season. Dali, where we are now, becomes especially popular in the summer because families come here to escape the heat, and rent can spike. So we do the opposite. We stay in Dali in spring and we go to Tokyo in summer.
A rigid schedule also turns small disruptions into financial emergencies. If your car breaks down on a Tuesday morning and you have a 9 a.m. meeting, you may have no choice but to pay for an expensive last-minute Uber. If your child gets sick and you must be at your desk, you need expensive emergency childcare. But when you control your own time, these emergencies just become inconveniences. You can wait, you can reschedule, you can use time instead of money to solve the problems.
After quitting, we had more time and mental clarity to manage our money properly. When you're exhausted from work, you may not have the bandwidth to manage the very things that shape your life: your health, your relationships, your happiness, and your finances.
Most people work hard to earn money, but they are too tired to manage that money well. Credit cards are paid late, tax planning gets postponed, subscriptions keep renewing, investment decisions are ignored because they feel too complicated after a long day, and the result is that that money never gets the attention it needs to grow into something that might eventually replace your labor.
When I was working, I was already quite organized with money, but after quitting, Rupert and I had more time to look at our finances together. We could think more clearly about asset allocation, withdrawal strategies, cash buffers, tax residency, and currencies.
Office work, when you really think about it, is not especially natural for the human body. We did not evolve to sit under fluorescent lights, stare at a screen for 9 hours, absorb constant pressure, sleep badly, eat poorly, and then call that a normal day. We often underestimate actually how much chronic stress, anxiety, and all these other impacts from work damage our mental and physical health. Quitting did not magically solve every health problem for us, but it did remove many root causes. We move more, we sleep more naturally, and we're not living with the same constant cortisol spikes.
For me, there was also the direct cost of therapy. When I was working, I went to therapy consistently for 2-3 years. After quitting, I haven't really needed therapy. That's not because anxiety, worry, or negative emotions disappeared from my life. They still exist. But now I have more time and space to face them directly instead of constantly trying to run away from them while there was another deadline waiting.
I think it's also so easy to normalize some unhealthy habits in certain cultural environments just to get away from the stress. I remember in the office, people would frequently take smoke breaks to relieve stress, and it's not unheard of to have a pint after a long day. But it is worth asking yourself, what impact does this have on the body over the course of years? And what cost will that have later down the line? Not just monetarily, but also physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Improved health may not show up immediately as money saved, but it may be one of the biggest financial benefits of all in the future. We don't want health to be something we sacrifice for money and then later spend money trying to get back.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If this video gave you some value, please give it a like and share it with a friend who might also find it helpful.
And if you enjoy thoughtful conversations about financial independence, slow travel, language learning, and designing a life beyond the 9 to 5, don't forget to subscribe. We will see you in the next one. Bye.